Commander Jake Morrison stepped carefully through the twisted metal corridors of Kepler Station. His boots made soft clicking sounds on the damaged floor plates. Behind him, 4 members of his salvage team followed in single file, their helmet. Lights cutting through the darkness like bright knives. The station had been empty for 3 years now. Ever since the war with the aliens ended, nobody wanted to come back to this place. Too many bad memories lived in these cold metal walls. Too many good soldiers had died here during the final battle. "Watch your step around that beam," Morrison called back to his team. A massive piece of ceiling had fallen and blocked most of the hallway. They had to squeeze past it one at a time. Dr. Lisa Carter was right behind him. She carried a scanner that beeped softly as it searched for anything valuable. "The readings are getting stronger," she said. "There should be something important." "In the data core up ahead," Morrison nodded. Earth Command wanted them to strip this station of anything useful before they blew it up for good. The war was over, but they still needed every piece of alien technology they could find. It might help them fight the next war, if one came. Behind Dr. Carter walked Sam Rodriguez, their communications expert. He was young and nervous, always, jumping at strange sounds. This was his first time on a dead station, and it showed. His hands shook slightly as he held his equipment. Tony Blake, their engineer, came next. He was older than the rest of them and had seen plenty of action during the war. Nothing seemed to bother him anymore. He just did his job and kept quiet. The last member of their team was Captain Beth Hayes. She was Morrison's second in command and had fought beside him in 6 major battles. She watched their backs while the others worked, her rifle always ready. Reached the data core after 20 minutes of careful walking. The room was huge and filled with broken computer systems. Cables hung from the ceiling like dead snakes. Most of the screens were dark and cracked. "Looks like the aliens really did a number on this place before they left," Tony said. He kicked a piece of broken metal out of his way. "Or we did," Beth said quietly. Morrison looked at her, but said nothing. They all knew what had happened here. During the final battle, it had not been pretty. Dr. Carter moved to the main computer terminal. "I'm getting some strange readings from the central core. It looks like something is still active down there." "Still active?" Morrison frowned. "That's impossible. We cut all power to this section 3 years ago." "I know what my scanner says," Dr. Carter replied. She was already working on the access panel. "There's definitely something running on backup power." It took her 15 minutes to get the core open. When she did, they all heard a soft humming sound coming from deep inside the machine. Green lights blinked slowly in the darkness. "Sam, can you tell what kind of system this is?" Morrison asked. Sam moved closer with his equipment. He ran several scans before shaking his head. "It's not human technology, sir. This is definitely alien." "Zealothy," Beth said. That was what the aliens called themselves. Most humans just called them bugs because of how they looked. Dr. Carter was already climbing down into the core. "I need to see what's down here," she called up to them. "The energy readings are incredible." Morrison wanted to tell her to be careful, but he knew it would not stop her. Dr. Carter had always been curious about alien technology. It was why she had joined the salvage team in the first place. They heard her gasp from inside the core. "Jake, you need to see this," she said. Her voice sounded strange. Morrison climbed down after her. The space inside the core was cramped and filled with alien machinery. Strange symbols glowed on small screens. But that was not what made Dr. Carter gasp. In the corner of the core, lying on a makeshift bed of cables and metal plates, was a Zealothy warrior. The alien was alive, but barely breathing. Its dark green exoskeleton was cracked in several places. One of its 4 arms hung at an odd angle, Morrison had seen plenty of dead Zealothi during the war, but never one that was still alive. The creature was smaller than he remembered. Without its weapons and armor, it looked almost fragile. How is this possible? Morrison whispered. We cleared this entire station. Every alien was supposed to be dead or gone. Dr. Carter was already scanning the creature with her medical equipment. It's been in some kind of hibernation state. The core has been keeping it alive with minimal power. The alien's large black eyes opened slowly. It looked at Morrison for a long moment, then tried to speak. The words came out as soft clicking sounds. Sam, get down here with your translator. Morrison called Dot when Sam arrived. He set up his equipment quickly. The translator was one of the few good things to come out of the war. It could turn alien speech into human words, though not always. Perfectly, the alien spoke again. This time the translator crackled to life. Water, it said in a mechanical voice. Please, water. Dr. Carter looked at Morrison. We should help it. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Morrison stared at the alien. During the war, these creatures had killed thousands of human soldiers. They had been fast, strong, and deadly. But this one looked weak and hurt. It was hard to see it as the enemy. It's probably a trap, Beth said from above. She had climbed part way down to see what was happening. These things are smart. It could be faking. But Morrison was not so sure. The alien's breathing was shallow and labored. Its exoskeleton was clearly damaged. If this was an act, it was a very good one. Tony, go back to the ship and get some water, Morrison decided, and bring the portable medical unit. Sir, are you sure about this? Tony asked. Morrison looked at the alien again. Its eyes were closing, as if the effort of staying awake was too much. No, he said, but we're going to do it anyway. While they waited for Tony to return, Dr. Carter continued her scans. This is remarkable, she said. Its biology is completely different from what we thought we knew. The alien opened its eyes again and spoke. The translator hummed for a moment before producing words. My name is Vextar. I am a keeper of stories, a rememberer of things. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. During the war, the aliens had never told them their names. They had just been targets to shoot at. Hearing this one speak its name made everything feel different. When Tony returned with water and medical supplies, Dr. Carter began working on the alien's injuries. Vextar accepted their help without resistance. He seemed too weak to fight even if he wanted to dot as Dr. Carter worked. Vextar spoke again. I have been waiting for someone to find me. I have stories to tell. Important stories about the war. About my people. Morrison felt another chill. What kind of stories? Vextar's black eyes focused on him with surprising intensity. Stories about the truth. About what really happened. About why I am the last one left alive. 3 weeks had passed since they found Vextar in the data core. Commander Jake Morrison looked out the window of their temporary base on Kepler Station. The stars looked the same as always, but everything else had changed. They had moved the Sarge, alien, to the old medical bay and set up proper equipment to keep him alive. Dr. Lisa Carter spent most of her time there, learning about Zealothi biology. She said it was the most amazing thing she had ever studied. Morrison was not sure if keeping the alien alive was the right choice. But every day, Vextar told them more stories about his people. And every day, Morrison felt more uncomfortable about what he was hearing. Jake, you need to see this, Dr. Carter called from the medical bay. Morrison walked over to find her staring at a large screen full of alien symbols and pictures. Vextar was sitting up in his bed, looking much better than when they found him. His cracked exoskeleton was healing slowly. Dr. Carter had figured out how to give him the right nutrients to help the process. What am I looking at? Morrison asked. San Rodriguez looked up from his translation equipment. It's a history file, sir. Vextar has been showing us records from before the war started. On the screen, Morrison could see what looked like a beautiful city. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, and flying vehicles moved between them. Gardens full of strange plants covered the rooftops. It looked peaceful and advanced. This was Zelathi Prime, Vextar said through the translator. My home world. These pictures were taken just before your people made contact with us. Morrison studied the images. During the war, they had been told that the Zelathi were primitive and violent. But this city looked more advanced than anything humans had built. Tell him about the first contact, Dr. Carter said softly. Vextar touched the control panel with one of his long fingers. The screen changed to show a different scene. Now Morrison could see human ships approaching the space station. The ships looked familiar. They were the same type used by Earth's merchant fleet. Your people came to us seeking trade, Vextar explained. We were excited to meet another intelligent species. We had been alone in the galaxy for so long. The alien touched another control. The screen showed Zelathi and humans meeting for the first time. The aliens looked curious and friendly. The humans seemed nervous but interested. What went wrong? Morrison asked, though he was starting to suspect the answer would not be good. Vextar's eyes dimmed slightly. There was a misunderstanding. One of your merchant ships needed repairs and landed on our moon. They did not know it was a sacred burial ground for our ancestors. The screen showed human workers setting up equipment on what looked like a barren rock surface. But Morrison could now see that there were structures there, beautiful carved, stones arranged in careful patterns. When we asked them to leave, they thought we were being hostile, Vextar continued. When we tried to show them why the place was important to us, they thought we were threatening them. Morrison felt a sick feeling in his stomach. So they called for military help. Yes, and when your warships arrived, we tried to defend our sacred sites. But your people saw this as an attack. Sam was working hard to translate everything correctly. Sir, he's showing us communication records from both sides. The Zelathi were asking for peaceful talks, but somehow the messages got mixed up. Morrison looked at the screen as it showed more images. Zelathi ships were clearly trying to withdraw from the human fleet, but human forces were advancing aggressively. We tried to surrender many times, Vextar said. But your people seemed to think we were setting traps. They kept attacking. Dr. Carter brought up another file. Jake, look at these population records. Before the war, there were over 50 billion Zelathi spread across 200 worlds. 50 billion? Morrison could hardly believe it. During the war, Command had told them they were fighting a small but dangerous alien force. Captain Beth Hayes walked into the medical bay, carrying her daily report. She stopped when she saw what was on the screen. What is all this? History lessons, Morrison said grimly. Beth, did you know there were 50 billion aliens before the war started? Beth looked confused. That's impossible. Command said we were fighting maybe a few million at most. Vextar spoke again. By the end of the first year, half of our worlds were destroyed. By the end of the second year, most of our people were dead or hiding. The screen showed images that made Morrison's blood run cold. Entire planets were burning. Zelathi cities were reduced to rubble. Bodies floated in space around destroyed ships. These are our medical centers, Vextar said as the images changed. Your people bombed them first in every battle. Then the schools. Then the places where our families lived. Dr. Carter's hands were shaking. This isn't what we were told happened. We were told we only hit military targets. Show them the children, Vextar said sadly. Morrison wanted to tell him to stop, but he knew he needed to see this. The screen filled with images of young Zelathi. They looked smaller and more colorful than the adults. Some were playing with what looked like toys. Others were learning in groups, like human children in school. "We are not so different," Vexstar sighed. "We raise our young with love. We teach them to be curious about the universe. We want them to be safe and happy." The images changed to show these same places after human attacks. Morrison had to look away. He had seen battlefields before, but this was different. These were not soldiers. Tony Blake chose that moment to walk in with his engineering report. He took one look at the screen and set down his tools. "What the hell is that?" "The truth," Beth said quietly. She was staring at the images with a pale face. "Tony, we weren't fighting a war. We were committing genocide." Sam looked up from his translator. "Sir, Vexstar says he has personal messages from Zealoty families. Recordings they made as the attacks got closer to their homes." Morrison wanted to say no, but he found himself nodding. They needed to know everything. The screen showed a Zealoty family in what looked like a simple home. Parents were hugging their children. They were speaking in their clicking language, but the translator turned their words into human speech. "If someone finds this recording, please know that we tried to live in peace. We never wanted to hurt anyone. We just wanted to raise our children and explore the stars." The message was cut off by the sound of explosions in the background. The screen went dark. Vexstar touched his controls again. "I have thousands of these. Messages. Families saying goodbye. Children asking why the humans wanted to hurt them. Elders praying that someone would remember our stories." Dr. Carter was crying now. How many survived the war? In the end, maybe a few thousand scattered across the galaxy. But your people kept hunting us. They called it cleanup operations. Morrison felt like the floor was falling away under his feet. Cleanup operations? Yes, even after we stopped fighting back, your ships kept coming. They searched every hiding place, every cave, every asteroid, every abandoned station. Vexstar looked directly at Morrison. "I am not just the last survivor of my unit, Commander. I am the last Zealoty in the universe. When I die, my entire species dies with me." The medical bay was completely silent, except for the soft humming of equipment. Morrison looked around at his team. They all had the same expression of shock and horror that he felt. Finally, Beth spoke. "Command is going to want to know what we found here eventually. They'll send someone to check on us." Morrison nodded slowly. He had been dreading this moment, but he knew it was coming. "How long do you think we have?" "Maybe a few more weeks before they get suspicious," Beth replied. Dr. Carter wiped her eyes and looked at Vexstar. "What do you want us to do?" "We can try to hide you, but—" Vexstar's black eyes seemed to look right through her. "I do not want to hide anymore. I want to tell my stories to anyone who will listen. Someone needs to remember what the Zealoty were really like." Morrison felt the weight of an impossible decision settling on his shoulders. If they turned Vexstar over to Earth Command, the alien would be tortured for information and then killed. But if they helped him, they would all face court-martial or worse. He looked at each member of his team. Sam was young and scared, but determined. Tony was old and tired, but still had his honor. Beth was a soldier, but also had a conscience. Dr. Carter was a scientist who believed in truth above all else. "We need to make a choice," Morrison said. "All of us together." Outside the station, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that the fate of the last member of an entire species hung in the balance of human conscience. The alarm bells rang through Kepler Station at exactly 0800 hours. Commander Jake Morrison shot up from his bunk and grabbed his communicator. The voice that came through made his blood turn cold. "Kepler Station, this is Admiral Charles Grant. Aboard the Hughes Valiant. We are approaching your position and will dock in 2 hours. Prepare for full inspection. Morrison ran to the medical bay, where his team was already gathering. Dr. Lisa Carter was disconnecting equipment from around Vexstar as fast as she could. The alien looked much stronger now, but Morrison could see worry in his large black eyes. How much time do we have? Tony Blake asked as he started packing up the translation equipment. Less than 2 hours, Morrison replied. We need to move Vexstar to the lower levels. The old storage areas should block their scanners. Captain Beth Hayes was already studying the station layout on her tablet. Section C7 is our best bet. It's deep enough and has thick metal walls. Sam Rodriguez looked terrified. What if they find him? What if they find out what we've been doing? They won't, Morrison said, though he was not sure he believed it. Himself, we stick to the story. We've been salvaging technology and had equipment problems. That's why we're taking so long. Vexstar struggled to stand up from his medical bed. I should not run from this. If your people find me, perhaps I can make them understand? Dr. Carter shook her head firmly. You don't know Admiral Grant. Was one of the main commanders during the war. He won't listen to anything you have to say. They moved quickly through the station corridors, carrying Vexstar and the most important equipment. The alien was weak, but able to walk with help. Morrison kept checking his watch as they went deeper into the station. Almost there, Beth said. As they reached the storage section, this room should work. The storage room was small and dark, filled with old supply crates. They set up a basic life support system for Vexstar and gave him enough food and water for several days. Stay quiet, no matter what you hear, Morrison told the alien. We'll come back for you as soon as it's safe. Vexstar nodded. I understand. But, Commander, before you go, there is something else you must know. Morrison wanted to leave immediately, but something in the alien's voice made him stop. What is it? I am dying, Vexstar said simply. Not from my injuries, from being alone. Doctor. Carter frowned. What do you mean? My people are connected in ways your science does not understand yet. We share thoughts and feelings across great distances. When the others died, part of me died too. Morrison felt a chill run through him. How long do you have? Perhaps a few more weeks. Maybe less. Vexstar looked at each of them. This is why. It is so important that my stories are told. When I die, everything about my people dies with me. They had no more time to talk. Morrison's team rushed back to the upper levels and tried to make everything look normal. They scattered around the station and began working on fake salvage projects. The Hughes Valiant was a massive warship, much larger than Morrison's small transport. When it docked with Kepler Station, the whole structure shook. Morrison went to the airlock to meet Admiral Grant. Admiral Grant was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He had 3 security officers with him, all carrying weapons. Morrison saluted as they came aboard. Admiral Grant, sir. Welcome to Kepler Station. Grant did not return the salute. He looked around the docking bay with obvious suspicion. Commander Morrison, your salvage operation was supposed to be finished 2 weeks ago. Why are you still here? Morrison had practiced his story many times. We've had technical difficulties, sir. Several computer systems were damaged worse than we thought. It's taken extra time to extract the data safely. Show me, Grant said. Morrison led the Admiral and his men through the station. They visited the areas where his team was working and inspected the salvaged equipment. Dr. Carter did a good job of explaining the technical problems they had supposedly encountered, but Morrison could tell that Grant was not convinced. The Admiral kept asking detailed questions and studying everything carefully. His security team was scanning the station with portable detectors. These energy readings are interesting, one of the security officers said. There are power signatures in sections that should be completely dead. Morrison's heart started beating faster. Some of the alien systems are still running on backup power. We've been trying to shut them down safely. Grant stopped walking and stared directly at Morrison. Commander, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Have you encountered any surviving aliens on this station? Morrison looked into the Admiral's cold eyes and lied as convincingly as he could. No, sir. This station has been completely empty since we arrived. I see. Grant turned to his security team. Continue scanning. Pay special attention to the lower levels. As they moved through the station, Grant began talking about the real reason for his visit. Command has received intelligence reports that some aliens may have survived the war. They could be hiding in remote locations like this one. San Rodriguez was doing his best to look calm, but Morrison could see sweat on his forehead. Survived. Sir, I thought we eliminated all of them. Grant smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. We eliminated all the ones we could find. But these creatures are clever. Some may have gone into hiding and waited for us to stop looking. They reached the area near where Vexstar was hidden. Morrison tried to stay calm as Grant's security team ran their scanners over the walls. The metal barriers were thick, but he was not sure they would block everything. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual readings from this section, one of the officers reported. Morrison felt panic rising in his chest. That's probably interference from the old alien computer systems. We haven't had time to clear all of them out yet. Grant nodded slowly. Open this storage room. I want to see what's inside. Morrison's mind raced. The storage room was right next to where they had hidden Vexstar. If Grant's team searched thoroughly, they would find the alien for sure. Sir, that room is full of broken equipment, Tony Blake said quickly. We moved all the damaged stuff there to get it out of the way. Grant ignored him and walked to the storage room door. Morrison watched helplessly as the Admiral activated the opening mechanism. The door slid open to reveal piles of old supply crates and broken machinery. The security team swept the room with their scanners and flashlights. Morrison held his breath, knowing that Vexstar was hidden just one room away. If they decided to check the next storage area, everything would be over. Nothing here but junk, one of the officers reported. Grant stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking around suspiciously. Morrison could see that he was thinking about something. Finally, the Admiral stepped back. Seal this section, Grant ordered. I don't want anyone going into these storage areas without permission. Morrison's team exchanged worried glances. If the storage section was sealed, they would not be able to reach Vexstar. The alien would be trapped down there with limited supplies. Sir, some of our equipment is stored in that section, Dr. Carter said. We might need to access it to finish our work. Grant looked at her coldly. Then you'll ask for permission first. I'm posting guards at all the main access points. As they walked back toward the docking bay, Grant continued talking about the hunt for surviving aliens. Command has authorized me to eliminate any aliens I find. No questions, no prisoners. We can't risk them rebuilding their forces. Morrison felt sick to his stomach. Grant was not just talking about military action. He was talking about murder. What? If the aliens want to surrender? Sam asked quietly. Grant stopped walking and turned to face the young communications officer. There are no surrenders in this war, son. These creatures are too dangerous to be allowed to live. Every single one of them must be destroyed. Beth Hayes spoke up carefully. Sir, what if they have valuable information? Scientific knowledge that could help us? Any information they have, we can take from their computers after they're dead. Grant replied. Living aliens are a security risk that Earth Command will not accept. Morrison realized that Grant was not just following orders. The man actually believed that genocide was the right choice. In his mind, he was protecting humanity by wiping out an entire species. When they reached the docking bay, Grant turned to Morrison one final time. I'm leaving a security team here to help you finish your work. They'll make sure you don't encounter any problems. Morrison nodded, knowing he had no choice. Thank you, sir. One more thing, Commander. If you do find any aliens, contact me. Immediately. Do not attempt to handle the situation yourself. These creatures are more dangerous than you might think. After Grant and most of his men returned to the Valiant, Morrison found himself facing an impossible situation. Vexstar was trapped in the storage section, with guards blocking the access points. The alien was slowly dying and had only weeks to live. And now there were armed soldiers on the station who would kill Vexstar without hesitation if they found him. Morrison looked at his team and saw the same helpless feeling in their eyes. They had learned the truth about the war, but they were powerless to do anything about it. The last member of an entire species was dying alone in the dark, and they could not even comfort him in his final days. 2 days passed before Commander Jake Morrison found a way to reach Vexstar. The guards that Admiral Grant had left behind were good soldiers, but they followed predictable patterns. Morrison waited until the night shift when only 2 men were. Watching the storage section, Dr. Lisa Carter created a distraction by triggering a false alarm in the power systems. While the guards went to investigate, Morrison slipped into the sealed storage area through an old maintenance tunnel that Tony Blake had found. He discovered Vexstar sitting quietly in the dark corner where they had left him. The alien looked weaker than before, and his breathing was more labored. Morrison could see that Dr. Carter was right. Vexstar was dying, and there was nothing human medicine could do to stop it. Commander, Vexstar said softly, I did not think I would see you again. Morrison knelt down beside the alien. We've been trying to find a way to get you out of here, but Grant has guards everywhere. Vexstar shook his head slowly. It does not matter anymore. I can feel my life ending. But before I die, I must give you something important. The alien reached into a hidden pocket in his damaged exoskeleton and pulled out a small crystal device. It glowed with a soft blue light and felt warm when Morrison touched it. This contains the complete history of my people, Vexstar explained. Everything we were, everything we believed, everything we created. It is the last record of the Zealothi civilization. Morrison stared at the crystal. It was smaller than his hand, but it held the memories of an entire species. Why are you giving this to me? Because someone must remember us, Vexstar said. When I die, the Zealothi will be extinct. But our stories can still live on if someone is willing to tell them. Morrison put the crystal in his pocket. What do? You want me to do with it? Share it with others. Let people know what we were really like. Help them understand that we were not monsters. Vexstar's voice was getting weaker. Perhaps it will stop this from happening again. Morrison heard footsteps in the corridor outside. The guards were returning from investigating the false alarm. He had to leave immediately or risk being caught. I'll find a way to get you out of here, Morrison promised. But Vexstar was already shaking his head. No, Commander. I have made my decision. Tomorrow morning, I will surrender myself to Admiral Grant. Morrison felt panic rising in his chest. That's suicide. He'll kill you immediately. Yes, probably. But first, he will listen to what I have to say. And maybe, just maybe, some of your people will hear my words and remember them. Morrison wanted to argue, but he could see that Vexstar had already made up his mind. The alien was ready to die, but he wanted his death to mean something. The next morning, Morrison was working in the main computer room when alarms started ringing throughout the station. His communicator crackled to life with urgent voices. Security. Alert. Alien contact in Section C7. All units respond immediately. Morrison ran toward the storage area, knowing what he would find. Vexstar had kept his word and revealed himself to the guards. By the time Morrison arrived, Admiral Grant was already there with a full security team. Vextar stood calmly in the middle of the corridor, his hands raised to show he was not carrying weapons. The human soldiers had their rifles pointed at him, but they seemed unsure about what to do. They had expected to fight a dangerous enemy, not arrest a peaceful alien who was clearly dying. Admiral Grant stared at Vextar with a mixture of anger and surprise. "How long has this creature been on my station?" Morrison stepped forward, knowing he had to take responsibility. 3 weeks, sir. We found him in the data core and decided to study him." "You decided to study him?" Grant's voice was dangerously quiet. "Commander, you deliberately disobeyed direct orders and hid an enemy alien from military command." "Yes, sir, I did." Grant turned back to Vextar. "And you, creature? How many others are hiding out there? Where are the rest of your kind?" Vextar looked directly at the Admiral with his large black eyes. "I am the last one, Admiral Grant. When you kill me, my species will be extinct forever." Grant laughed coldly. "Good. That was always the plan." But Vextar was not finished speaking. "Before you execute me, I have something to say. Will you listen to the last words of the last Zealothy?" Morrison watched as Grant considered this request. The Admiral was curious despite himself. He wanted to hear what the alien would say. "You have 5 minutes," Grant said finally. Vextar straightened up as much as his damaged body would allow. When he spoke, his voice carried a dignity that made everyone in the corridor listen carefully. "My people were explorers and builders. We created beautiful cities and works of art that took centuries to complete. We loved our children and taught them to be curious about the universe. We believed that life was sacred and that all intelligent beings could learn from each other." Grant started to interrupt, but Vextar continued speaking. "When we first met humans, we were excited. We thought we had found friends among the stars. We wanted to share our knowledge and learn about your culture, but fear and misunderstanding led to violence." Morrison could see that some of the soldiers were lowering their weapons slightly. They had never heard an alien speak like this before. "We tried many times to make peace. We sent surrender messages that were ignored. We offered to withdraw from all disputed areas. We even offered to share our technology freely if you would stop the killing." Dr. Carter had arrived with the rest of Morrison's team. She was crying as she listened to Vextar's words. "But your people saw us only as enemies, to be destroyed. You bombed our cities, killed our children, and hunted us across the galaxy until almost none remained." Grant's face was turning red with anger. "That's enough. Your people started this war by attacking our ships." Vextar shook his head sadly. "No, Admiral. You know that is not true. The war started because neither of our peoples took time to understand each other. Fear led to violence, and violence led to genocide." The alien looked around at all the human faces watching him. "I do not hate you for what you have done. Hate would only create more violence. Instead, I hope that my death will be the last death in this terrible war." Grant raised his sidearm and pointed it at Vextar. "Your death will be the end of your worthless species." But Vextar surprised everyone by smiling. "No, Admiral. My death will be the beginning of something new, because these people have heard my story, and they will remember it." Morrison stepped forward desperately. "Admiral, wait. This alien has valuable information about their technology. Command would want us to interrogate him properly." Grant kept his weapon trained on Vextar. "Command wants all aliens dead. No exceptions." "Please," Dr. Carter said through her tears. "He's the last one. When he dies, we'll never understand what we've lost." Grant looked around at Morrison's team and saw something in their faces that made him pause. These were good soldiers who had served with honor during the war. But now they were looking at him like he was the monster. For a long moment, Nobody moved. Then Grant slowly lowered his weapon. "Take the alien to the detention cell," he ordered his men. "I'll decide what to do with him later." As the soldiers led Vextar away, the alien looked back at Morrison one last time. "Remember the crystal, Commander. Share the stories." That night, Vextar died peacefully in his cell. Dr. Carter said his. Alien physiology finally gave out from being separated from his people for so long. He passed away in his sleep, and his last words were a prayer in his own language for all the children of the galaxy, both human and Zelathi. Admiral Grant ordered the body destroyed immediately. But Morrison had already hidden the crystal containing the Zelathi historical records. Years later, Morrison retired from the military and became a teacher. He never told anyone about the crystal directly, but he found ways to share Vextar stories with his students. He taught them about the importance of understanding others. Before judging them, Dr. Carter went on to develop new protocols for first contact with alien species. Her work was based on principles that Vextar had shared with them about peaceful communication between different cultures. The other team members also carried Vextar's influence into their new lives. They became advocates for peace and understanding, working quietly to make sure that humanity's next encounter with alien life would end differently. 50 years after Vextar's death, when humans finally met another intelligent species, the first, contact went smoothly. The negotiations were careful and respectful. Both sides took time to understand each other's cultures before making any agreements. In a small garden on Earth, there stands a simple stone marker with words written in both human and alien script. Most people who pass by do not know what it says, but the few who can read it see this message: in memory of Vextar, last of the Zelathi, who taught us that the universe is large enough for all its children. The marker was placed there by Morrison's students, who had learned from their teacher that every species has stories worth preserving. They understood that wisdom can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most important lessons come from listening to those who are different from ourselves. Vextar's death marked the end of the Zelathi people, but his words lived on in the hearts and minds of those who heard them. His greatest hope, that his story would help prevent future tragedies, had come true. The last Zelathi had died alone, but he had not died forgotten.